18th, and it is the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. All the directors are here except for one who is out of town. So,
Two.
Sorry?
Okay, yeah, Mark.
yeah. So, do we have any additions and corrections to the agenda?
We do not. There is a corrected staff note in the regular session that we can talk about.
So we are going to go into closed section.
We should take public comment if there are any members of the public that want to comment. We have 4 items on closed session. We have discussions with the district's representative for labor negotiations. And we have 3 matters of existing litigation. The Water Management District's lawsuit against LAFCO, the Water Management District's lawsuit against CalAm, and the Taxpayers Association lawsuit against the district.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody?
There are no attendees.
No, no attendees present, so we can go into closed session. Recess the closed session.
Recording stopped.
who needed to, who needed to know.
Recording in progress.
All right, we have returned from closed session. Again, this is the Board of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, Monday, March 18th, and we will start our regular session. It is just a couple minutes past 6. Roll call, please.
Director Oglesby.
Here.
Director Adams.
Here.
Director Paul.
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
Vice Chair Riley.
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here.
And we will note that Director Eisenhardt is absent tonight.
So let's take the Pledge of Allegiance now, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And are there any corrections or additions to the?
You'll
agenda?
find in your red folder a revision to staff note for item 12. There's no substantive changes other than the description of its CEQA compliance, because in the header, we just forgot to read that correctly. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. Are there any, let's see, any oral communications? Anybody wishing to speak to the board on the matters on the consent calendar, information items, closed session items? You may do so during oral communications. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yeah, good evening. Tom Raleigh, President,
Raleigh.
Fisherman's Flats Homeowners and Residents Association. Sorry, I missed the February meeting. I did listen to it on TV for a while. Anyway, you continue to receive correspondence from Public Water Now that indicates Measure J was a mandate. Measure J was not a mandate. It was election. It passed, what, 53% of the vote or 56% of the vote, but it was not a mandate. It was not near the percentage of vote that voted in 2004, 2005 to do away with your board. So this idea about a mandate when there isn't a mandate, just saying that is not going to make it true. And the thing is, you need to start telling people the truth about what's going on. And so I urge you starting with the fact that the judge ordered the sunsetting of the water supply charge. I know it's on your closed agenda again tonight, but it's time to make a decision and tell your manager to follow what the judge has said. Judge Panetta certainly considered all the facts. I was there. She weighed them all very carefully. And it was very clear that the water supply charge needed to be sunsetted, which she ordered. So follow what the judge has said. The longer you go without following it and appealing it and delaying it and listening to your general manager, it's a mistake. So that's what I'm suggesting. Do your jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Raleigh, anybody else? Is there anyone on calling in?
Yes, Chair Anderson, I have a caller ending the number 312. Caller, when you're ready.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Margaret Ann.
Margaret Ann Coppernoll speaking. Please accept my highest accolades for your stellar defense of our water during the recent CPUC hearing on water supply and demand issues. Your superlative performance, along with those of our sister water agencies and the City of Marina, made us all very proud of you and your support for our water resources. All hope is ours because there is no surplus aquifer water for Cal-Am's desal, with the added Sustainable Groundwater Management Act law that precludes Cal-Am from continuing to extract fresh water from the dune sand aquifers and the 180 400-foot aquifers. The CPUC is complicit in this water theft, but that surreptitious action cannot and will not stand. Our water district representatives did a stellar job in preparation and presentation for the CPUC 4-day hearing. We thank you for your stamina and patience and for your brilliance in execution. Staff worked hard to support while board members pondered serious deliberations. You all deserve the highest honors. God bless you with every success in your endeavors. Our communities are so fortunate to have you with us. Please know your energy and endurance fuel our hope for a better water tomorrow. We love you all, with your board standing tall in the saddle. No thanks is enough, so I hope you can feel our hearts beating for you. You inspire our souls. If council and general manager can provide a synopsis of their CPUC hearing result analysis and projections of outcomes, that would be much appreciated. Thank you again. God bless you. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Coppenall.
Director Anderson, I have Susan Schiavone. Susan, when you're ready.
Good evening, board and general manager. I just want to counter the earlier speaker that Measure J was certainly a legal ordinance written well and passed by the majority of the voters, and you have respected it. And the majority of these voters back what is happening. And I just want to encourage you on the positive side for this. And I hope that it goes through and we do have a public water agency at some point. And thank you for all your work you've done at the CPUC. I did listen to most of those hearings last week. While it was repetitive and a lot of questions and back and forth, I do appreciate Dave Laredo and Fran Farina and all of you people that have been working very hard on this. And I do hope they make the right decision. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Schiavone.
Chair Anderson we have Anna Thompson.
Good evening. This is Anna Thompson. Carmel, can you hear me okay? I'm not sure.
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I wanted to thank you for taking my call. And I also like to express my gratitude to you all for your leadership, hard work, and perseverance in getting us where we are now. Having to deal with CalAm is exhausting and very frustrating. But please don't give up. We must succeed in purchasing CalAm. The previous speakers said everything what my sentiments are, so I share their views, and I'm so grateful of your work. And I just wanted to say that I cannot understand how CalAm, a monopoly whose main interest is profits, is allowed to continue promoting a desal plant, which we don't need, cannot afford, and it is harmful to the coastal ecosystems. In fact, I don't believe CalAm has even provided a cost-benefit analysis in comparison with the other alternatives. So another thing that I wanted to say is that we must succeed in purchasing CalAm. There are numerous reasons why it's always better to have community ownership of the water rather than private ownership. There are three major reasons that I think there are many reasons why community ownership is better than private. But three major reasons, in my view, is it's always cheaper to pay for a product at cost than paying at cost plus profits. We must also consider the costs for future repairs and or system improvements, which will be higher than they will be much higher under private ownership. And another reason is instead of paying CalAm for all those millions in profits, we could invest our money to purchase CalAm. Yes, the water rates might even be higher at first, but with each payment we make, our financial liability will be reduced. It's like purchasing your own home instead of renting. Because of inflation, the rent will continue to go up, but the house mortgage will eventually be paid off. And so, and the future inhabitants of this area will benefit. But just imagine if they have to continue having a monopoly, controlling and profiting from the water. What would the people would not be able to afford to live in this area? So we needed to do that, if not for ourselves, but for the future generations. Then another.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Your
Thank
3
you.
minutes is
Thank
up.
you for listening, and
Thank you.
thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your work. Please persevere. Thank you.
Chair Anderson, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you. All right, are there any, we're on to the consent calendar. Does anybody request that we pull an item? So can we have a motion?
I'll move to approval of the consent calendar.
Okay, can we have a vote? Oh, excuse me, comments, yeah,
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we take a vote?
That can be a roll call. No,
Okay,
it does not
Does not
require a
have
roll
to be a
call.
roll call.
okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. General Manager's report.
Well, thank you. I have a couple of announcements. One, 2 weeks ago, Sarah, this came in the mail. This is a District Transparency Certificate of Excellence awarded by the Special District Leadership Foundation, which recognizes the district in the following: in recognition of the district's completion of all transparency program requirements designed to promote transparency in their operations and governance to the public and other shareholders, or stakeholders rather. And it is effective February 2024 through March of 2027. This will be given a,
Congratulations.
Yeah.
to staff.
Wonderful.
Tom, transparency. I also wanted to let the board see a document that those of us who are in Washington, D.C. left behind with both our legislative delegation as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. This is a compilation of small regional projects with an emphasis on water security, meaning interconnections and backups, water resiliency for drought, flooding, and sea level rise, and water supply with respect to new diversion and recycling projects, as well as a new ASR well and so forth. And the intent of this was to kind of display a portfolio of potential smaller projects to get at our, we have a $25 million authorization that we got passed into law in December of 2022 under the Water Resources Development Act for projects specifically related to water and wastewater on the Monterey Peninsula. And now we're trying to get some of those monies out. Unfortunately, the section under which the Army Corps operates doesn't do really, really big funding. So it's going to be little dribs and drabs, but it's a start. And then we also have identified a project on behalf of the city of Seaside that would be submitted in an application for a community funding project. And the Senator Butler's application had to go in last week, which it did. Senator Padilla's application is due in 2 weeks, and we've been talking to the city about whether the district does it or they do it, and whether we want to do it at all. But that would be a request for 5 million with a likelihood of probably no more than $1 million. But that would certainly help facilitate that project. You may recall that the city of Seaside's well could use a backup or redundancy, and that their municipal system covers a significant disadvantaged community by block analysis. So it has a nice fit for an earmark through the EPA's state and tribal program. So that's the two things that we're looking at for small dollar allocations, and that cycle is right now back in DC. I guess we'll go to the general manager's report on compliance. I'll tell you right off the top that we found about an hour before this meeting a set of data that didn't line up with reality. So I'm not going to make you look at hard numbers because we need to fix it. And it's a variation of about 50 or 60 acre feet, but we can't pinpoint whether it's double counted or counted in one slide, not the other. So with that, it's not coming to life, Sarah.
When we will get the report.
We'll revise it so it'll be accurate next month. But there are some things I want you to see in here. Sarah, just go ahead and advance. That's fine. What I do want to highlight on this one is that there is 117 acre feet year to date in the table 13 water rights. That's a positive. Designating that water right in a rainy season helps with the overall system management. Next slide, please. And this is the one where the first slide and this slide don't show the same result for the Carmel River. So we'll just not talk about it this month and we'll talk about it next month. But here we go to the next one, which is rainfall. And during last month's presentation, I said it looked like February was going to be pretty good. You can see that February was very much above normal, the red bar being normal or average and the blue bar being current. And I can tell you that right now we're at 103% of long-term average with the expectation of rain this weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means for ASR in a second. But it's looking like we'll probably be above average for the year, rainfall wise. On a stream flow basis, the next chart is the rain gauge at San Clemente. And Sarah, if you would. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there should be the next slide is red and blue line chart. Are you frozen? Well, you have this in your packet. There we go. And this is where you can see an additional about 2 inches have already been added in March that wasn't reflected on that previous chart. So March is looking close to normal, depending on what happens this coming weekend. And then on a stream flow basis, which is the next chart, we're at actually only about 71% of long-term average. So, that's the difference between precipitation and stream flow and how the watershed responds to the bursts of rainfall. The next chart is ASR injection. And I want to spin a little story. You can see on March 7th, almost zero injection. And we received a burst of non-spec or off-spec water. And it appears that the screens in the wells have become somewhat clogged, partially clogged. So this relates to the agenda item 12 in your packet. I think at the time of writing that staff report, it was unclear what we need to do. It's pretty clear at this point that we can continue to operate at about 2/3 or 70% of capacity, which is our recommendation. That's what we've been doing here for the last week. So we can get about 9 acre-feet per day in. With the current levels in the river, even if it doesn't rain, we would get maybe 4 to 6 weeks of additional injection. With the rains, that may take us all the way into May. But it does bode well for at least getting total injection up above the 1,000 acre-foot mark for the year. The non-spec water was a result of an incident at the Begonia iron removal plant and the water that was put into the CalAm system. I think if we had a little better communication, we would have turned the injection wells off and run the water into the backflush pit and still it counted it as injection. But because it got into the wells, we're going to have to get somebody in there to clean the wells as soon as the injection season ends. And that we will talk about when we get to that action item number 12. So it's been a good year for us, but you can see by the lowered yellow bars that we'll kind of limp out the remainder of the season, as I said, at about 70% capacity, if that holds, and we'll just continue to monitor. And that concludes the GM report on compliance. I did want to point out or just call your attention to a couple things on water supply. Pure Water Monterey expansion continues to move forward. The injection wells, there's a new purified recycled water pipeline, about 2,800 linear feet of a 20-inch diameter pipe that's being installed now, basically connecting the western well field. So this is where water is injected into the ground for the current base project. So for those of you who have been out there, Director Edwards, you remember where you put your hand under the water? That's close to injection well number 4. And they kind of work their way up the hill. The new injection wells are going to be further up the hill off of, this is eucalyptus that goes into Fort Ord, and that'll be called the eastern site. And the two are being connected by horizontal drilling rather than trenching for this 20-inch diameter pipeline. So that's underway. And then up at the plant, we're still in the midst of just getting the long lead time items ordered and to show up on site. But the schedule still has injection testing in August of 2025. So we're still on target for a 2025 completion. And the last piece of the $42 million of grant monies was a $15 million state revolving fund grant. That just came in, signed, sealed, and delivered 2 weeks ago. And that's one of the grants that goes to Monterey One Water. Our grants being one from the Department of Water Resources, and then one from the governor's budget that's being administered through the state revolving fund. So we're making good progress there as well. And we actually are getting fairly good turnaround time, both on the grant reimbursements and the federal EPA WIFIA loan reimbursement. So it's always the public spends its money first and then gets reimbursed. When the state revamped its system back when we were building the base pure water project, the state got way behind on reimbursement, and it was a problem. We're seeing none of that here. It's all been very good reimbursement timeline. So that concludes the GM report.
Thank you. Questions?
This handout you gave, is this the result of the management, whatever it's called?
IRWM?
IRWM, yeah.
This is a result of Maureen Hamilton developing those relationships with the local entities, as well as some outreach I've done to my counterparts like Rem Scherzinger. So the interconnection that would allow Castroville Community Services District to connect to the Marina Coast. Kind of came from GM to GM. The seaside water security concept came from their public works person through the IRWM process with district engineer. So
it's wider than IRW.
yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, this is a starting point to try to actually get money out of an authorization that we endeavored to go get money. We got it written into the law. It doesn't get funded very fully. So we're competing with 50 states and all the water districts across the country and the territories for small dollars. But we at least wanted to have a portfolio of projects, because in addition to that program, there still is earmarks available, still are earmarks available. So, it just becomes a good leave behind for staff and
This
so
is
forth.
great. I love the fact that the district is heavily involved in IRW the way it is. I had one other question. Well, I'll let another director answer. My other question is, can you comment on the status of the water allocation process?
Yeah, great question. We're no longer waiting for it. Sorry, supervisor, waiting for the county's housing element.
Wonder why?
We did get responses from our partners in the military and Coast Guard. And I believe airport also. I'll have to check with Stephanie Locke. So we're in a position to move forward with our first technical advisory committee meeting. So we're going to try to schedule that up probably early May to work with the jurisdictions. We know where we want to go, and we have got pretty good substantiation for it. The missing piece, of course, is what's the county going to try to stick in the unincorporated areas, and how much of that is going to be ours versus some other entity. I think it's all pretty much going to be in the district, meaning Cal-Am main service area. But I think we'll just kind of do scenario A and scenario B in that case. We have no intention of allocating 100% of the available water, so it's going to be just a starter set.
And are there, is there dialogue, or even if it's necessary, with Marina Coast Water District for Delray Oaks and Monterey in particular?
There is dialogue
as well. But
yeah, and they stand ready to serve. But Fort Ord, for those of you who used to be involved with Fort Ord, there was an allocation for each party who would receive water after Fort Ord was gone. And City of Monterey is an example of one of those. And there's an allocation for their Fort Ord parcels. The amount of housing that they've currently put in their housing element that's going to land on Old Fort Ord exceeds that allocation. So there's going to have to be some rethinking of where that water is going to come from, because it's served by Marina Coast. Seaside's housing element picks up so much of their housing from Campus Town and other projects that are in Old Fort Ord, including the Enclave, which is, I think, entering phase 4 now. And so they have water, but they also need water to fully round out Campus Town. So we've taken that housing out of our side of the equation, put it into Marina Coast side of the equation. But the city's still going to have to do some work to move water from stored water credits to get it into Marina Coast system to complete that, which I think they'll be able to do. We just last month, you guys just did the same thing for Ascent with the approval of that second reading in the ordinance. So there's wet water through that in-lieu recharge program to make water available. So I think they'll be fine there. The only piece of Marina Coast's involvement that we're wary of is Marina Coast delivering water to the city of Monterey for housing that's not Old Fort Ord. There's some blue sky thinking going on that I don't think I would want to bring to you for support. But it's not far enough along.
To
Through the chair, just have a question. Well, first of all, thank you for putting this together. That was a very good thing to do, to let potential funders and the public know about these projects. I'm just wondering, did the district initiate all of these? Or were some of them, did you
Right.
go out to the jurisdictions and tell them money's available for this type of thing?
It's the latter.
Uh-huh.
So I think on the last page where you see the rows of crops, that's a winter modifications for the Salinas reclamation project. We've been talking about that since 2014 with all the Pure Water Monterey discussion. And it's been a project that's been kicking around since before that. And we'd like to see it done. It probably benefits the growers more than it benefits Pure Water Monterey, but it's still, working together. The city of Seaside's well, that's a project on their books that they know they need, and they've scoped out different locations where it can happen. Our goal was just to see if we could squeeze out some federal dollars so the city wouldn't have to foot 100% of it. The small diversion facilities and recycling are primarily a result of the stormwater master plan that was done, that was a regional effort outside of the IRWM. But so there's a whole variety of these little projects. And as we told some of the folks we met with in DC, we're at that point now where we've built the base project, we're expanding the project, and now it's try to go sweep up more sources of inflow to make the, to kind of maximize the project's impact. And so you'll see a lot of those. But the Carmel area wastewater connection to the Highlands, get them off a septic. Septic systems are failing all around Carmel Valley. Our interest is, we sell the water in the reclamation project to the golf courses and the Stevenson School. Those incoming sources have been in decline due to conservation. So you've seen Carmel Valley Road all torn up for the extension to Carmel Valley Manor. So that's new sewering. This would be the same type of thing, sewering the Highlands that increases flows into the Carmel area wastewater district plant that then increases flows into the reclamation project for irrigation. And our role in that is it's our water from the plant to the end user inside Pebble Beach Community Service District's pipes. And, it's a big partnership, but that's where that one comes from. So it's just trying to coalesce all of the regional interests to see if we can't get some money out, especially from our authors, the authorized 25 million that
Is
Sounds
that
like
the
projects with multiple benefits.
That's the same thing that's going to happen with the September Ranch sewer water?
So I think sewer is going to be served by COD. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I know we're going to be talking about the annual report in this agenda. And I know, listening to it, that you're thinking about something with the Coast Weekly about putting an insert or something in there. Can we do that with this? Later on in the year, I don't want to feed folks all of it at one time, but this is a good item for another part of the year that I think the community.
The format is exactly the same. It's a trifold in this size. So physically, yes. I think the annual report is the better messenger.
Okay.
Which you saw in your packet. But yeah, we'll hold on to that idea.
Because
we certainly didn't print enough for that purpose. But
just some in the future we can look at for addition. I prefer seeing these go out than those other things. That's all I got, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. We skipped over oral reports. Did we? No, we didn't. No, we're report from district council. I got ahead of myself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, and to members of the board and to the public. I have two items to report on. First of all are the four items that we discussed in closed session. And then there's one other item of pending litigation that I'd like to provide an update on. In closed session, there were four items. The first item was labor negotiations. That was a placeholder. The events that we had anticipated might occur did not occur, so there was no discussion with respect to labor negotiations. That's going to be coming attractions. The second and third and fourth items are three matters of pending litigation. The Water Management District's lawsuit against LAFCO is on appeal. LAFCO appealed, the CalAm appealed, and the district perfected its cross appeal on February 15th. The matter is now before the 6th District Appellate Court. Where we are is in terms of that status is that the trial court record has been identified, but it's not yet been prepared. What happens before the appellate court is that the trial court will eventually forward the record that it was before the trial court to the appellate court. We will then receive notice of that, and a briefing schedule will be set for us by the appellate court. How long that will take is a bit unknown. My sense is that it will be at least a month or two before we get that notice from the appellate court. So that's in hold from our perspective. The second matter of pending litigation that was discussed in closed session is the Water Management District's eminent domain lawsuit against CalAm. That has been assigned to Judge Vanessa Vallarta in Department 13A in Monterey. The CalAm did file a demur in that case. The demur is set for hearing before Judge Vallarta on the 3rd of May. A demur basically questions the ability of the district to proceed legally. And a decision will be made as to whether or not our lawsuit should not proceed, or if it needs to be amended. CalAm also has filed its initial set of discovery requests against the district. The CalAm filed form interrogatories, requests for admission, and special interrogatories related to the district's historical provision of water. The time period to respond to that would have been the end of April. I'm sorry, the end of March, but CalAm has agreed to extend that so that the demur hearing could be heard. So we have at least a 30-day extension, probably longer, and probably it will go to early or mid-May before those responses need to be filed. The last item discussed in closed session was the matter on appeal by the Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association against the district. That has to do with the collection of water supply charge monies. That is before the 6th District Court of Appeal. The district's reply brief is due at the end of this month. And thereafter, the Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association will have the opportunity to file a closing or reply brief, and that will happen at the end of April. Once all those briefs are lodged with the 6th District Court, the court will be reviewing those, coming up with a tentative decision, and then setting the matter for oral argument before that court. Although it's not known how long that will take, my best guess is that oral argument will occur sometime in mid to late summer, but we won't know until the court notifies us. That concludes the discussion in closed session. There was one item of pending litigation that was referred to during oral communications, and that was last week. There were 5 days of evidentiary hearings before the Public Utilities Commission. Administrative Law Judge Haga did convene via Zoom, and I have to tell you that is my least favorite way to hold a evidentiary hearing is by Zoom. It's just awkward. But this was the phase 2 proceeding in the CalAm's application 21 011-024. And application was filed in 2021. This is phase 2. And the focus of this portion of that hearing is on what water demand is projected to be needed and when, and what water supply sources are available and in what quantity. And that's what the testimony went to. The testimony phase closed. We are now going to the briefing stage once we have an opportunity to review the transcripts. The opening briefs will be filed concurrently by all parties on April 30th. And thereafter, reply briefs will be filed concurrently by all parties on May 23rd. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So directors' reports are next, trips, conferences, attendance, and meetings. Yes.
Just about almost 3 weeks ago now, Chair Anderson, General Manager Stolt, and myself had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with our key partners as well as our legislators. I think it was a very productive visit. It was really interesting and exciting. We had the opportunity to meet and I think strengthen a really strong relationship with Susan Lucas, who is the Deputy Chief for the South Atlantic and South Pacific Division Regional Integration Team of the Army Corps of Engineers. We had a good meeting with her that lasted probably a little longer than she had anticipated, but we weren't marching out the door. She was keeping us there. It was a really good opportunity for us to get to know her. We had this meeting was for the Association of California Water Agencies. So there were other water people from all over the state, and which was always a good thing because you get to hear what's going on in other people's districts and how successful they are and what the problems are. So that opportunity to interact with a lot of people was really very good. We had the opportunity to meet with Senator LaFonsa Butler's staff. We talked with her environmental policy advisor and had some good exchanges with them too. Again, letting them know who we are and what it is that we're doing. The next day, we had some presentations from other people throughout throughout Washington who are involved in a variety of different things to do with water. Essentially, we had Sarah Swig and Angela Ebener, who were from both Senator Padilla's offices, and then a variety of other people. Representative Valadeo had his staff person, and the person who was the speaker for the staff person for Speaker of the House Johnson also came to speak with us. That was kind of interesting. And then Representative Jim Costa from our California state came and chatted with us as well. So it was really very, very interesting. And I feel like we came away having done a lot of work. We met on Thursday morning with Congressman Panetta, and it was really nice because we had just confirmed the earmark that he had put in for us. We, were writing and it came through last Sunday when the president signed the bill, the continuing legislation to keep the government going. And there was a $3 million earmark that he had put in. It was for the California River Free project, but it was something that all of the people who are engaged in water issues throughout the area had been supportive of. So that was really pretty exciting. But I think, please go ahead and make your own comments, but I think it was a good experience for all of us to be able to do this.
Yeah, I don't think it was purely coincidental that while we were collectively on Capitol Hill, that a funding solution, a continuing resolution was passed. It was
us.
It was us.
Yeah. Well, and I saw the report I guess it was in the Pine Cone about the Panetta's getting the $3 million for COD. Just 3 weeks after we talked to him, there's no question that he enjoyed seeing people that he'd known for all his life. and hearing from General Manager Stolt about the projects and seeing that wonderful brochure about all the things that we're doing. It was interesting for me. I hadn't been on a trip like that. It was interesting for me to meet people who seem like very, very capable. What's the right word for them? Fundraisers, but people that have their ear to the ground and know what we're doing and know what we need to do. It seemed very professional to me. It was a team of people with a lot of expertise. I was very impressed with that, the first breakfast we had with that group. It also was fast. Anybody ever watched the West Wing program? It was really a lot like that. It's like boom, boom, boom. Everybody's moving really fast. So I needed roller skates to keep up, but it was interesting. And I think the other thing that was quite wonderful is meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers people who have had, I guess, a reputation, but it happens, things move slowly sometimes, the bigger the organization is, that money can take years to travel around. But one of the things that we needed was this extra bit of money for the COD project.
Carmel River Free.
Carmel River Free, yeah, that's what I meant to say. Carmel River Free project, which we were told was sitting on somebody's desk, and some people that Mary knows looked into it, and probably Dave as well, and it got budged off the desk. I was like, wow, felt like magic.
Government in action.
Yeah, government in action. That was really quite wonderful also to read about. So I learned a lot. Didn't say much, but I learned a lot about how it works and was impressed. Anybody else? Meetings, anything?
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds very interesting. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, locally, there was a meeting of local about the challenges to democracy in local government. And this was a meeting convened by Democratic Women in Monterey County. The meeting is not for women only, it's for everybody. There were a lot of, so there was a panel consisting of Mayor of Monterey, Tyler Williamson, Mayor of Soledad, Ana Velasquez, a member of the Pacific Grove City Council, Chaps Paduri, and Bill Manning was there also. And they talked, and there were a lot of local electeds in the attending. I think at least one other board member. Yeah. So they talked about some of the challenges which many of many of the local districts, special districts, and city councils, so on, have been having. For Soledad, there was a move to go backwards and stop electing the mayor directly, and instead have the mayor elected by the city council, which was the older system that had been replaced by referendum. And there was voters organized, and that measure was defeated. There were other problems like, disruptive attempts to disrupt meetings and derail them. People coming in with racist comments and that sort of thing, and we discussed ways to deal with that so that the disruption is minimal. They've been successful. And it's good to share that, because any local district could have, or city could have, an experience like that. And Bill Manning talked about he's working on a project to address the use of AI to influence elections. And he's working on a very interesting project with tech people and with Common Cause of California to figure out ways, legal and technical, to control that problem. So very interesting gathering.
Sounds like it. Anybody else? What? Dr.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Mr. Laredo, Fran, his staff for the CPUC hearing. That they did an outstanding job in that. It's long, tedious, a lot of repeats, but they did a great job on it. Another thing, I'd like to thank the general manager for talking to Monterey One Water back in January about getting off of 9510. He did a quick presentation on that. I wish that he could schedule that for this board and the public so they can get informed what it would take to get off of the cease and desist order. Certain things that we got to do, certain things we're going to need from the community. So I think it'd be about time to bring the public back up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we're on to item number 8, and at this time, if anybody has any comments to make.
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. So item 8, consider adoption of the 2023 annual report by the district.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The draft annual report appeared in your packet. It was emailed to you a couple days before the packet. We've now received some comments, but it's pretty much ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
It's a trifold and similar style to the water projects piece that was distributed here. I think Phil Wellman's done a very good job this year, just like last year. Obviously, we liked last year so much, I stole his format for the water projects for sure. But the key thing here is for you to get us any remaining comments you might have, as well as authorize tonight the approval subject to those minor edits coming back. And also an approval of including it as a distribution item in the weekly as Director Edwards mentioned.
I
Dr.
just had a
Adams?
question. Thank you. I think it looks beautiful. It really does. And the staff and all of you, Phil, as well, just did a wonderful job. It really, really looks terrific. I was just curious if we know how much it would cost to put it in the pine cone. And I ask about that because the pine cone is the second largest distribution, plus it's delivered to people's homes. It isn't just in a stack someplace. So I think it might be, well read, where we should consider that.
Yeah, I'll have staff call Nina and then the advertising department tomorrow, just find out what the process would be. I think what attracted us to the weekly is very low cost for getting inserted, little higher cost for printing, but that they were capable of doing it automatically. It's just pretty straightforward. Now the pine cone obviously can do inserts automatically because we see them for the health care issue and different issues. So I'll talk to I'll have Stephanie talk to me and talk to Paul.
Good, thank you.
I would like to thank you for sending this out and giving some time for corrections or small edits. Appreciated that.
If we have other edits, would you like us to email them to you? Okay, so we don't have to take time. Yeah.
And this copy here has the first round of edits or not?
No,
Okay,
that's
as
raw-
was.
raw what you saw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Well, I agree. Looks very good, subject to a few edits. This may be, I may be worrying unnecessarily, but the section where we talk about the budget for fiscal year 2023-24, I just want to make sure that those numbers have been checked. So because we wouldn't want to make a mistake. I have no reason to think that there is a mistake, but I just want to be, just the kind of thing that should be double checked, since those numbers can change with corrections and so on.
Yeah, the numbers here are what were published in the act.
Thank you. I will sleep better. Okay.
All right.
I did have actually, it's pretty interesting reading, I think, and as reading it, I had some questions. The section that talks about the water efficiency projects and the landscaping permitting. And what you said, it says it gives the amount of landscaping that was rehabilitated with water conserving landscaping. And I was just wondering, how far back does that go? When did those state requirements that the district is implementing go into effect?
Stephanie, did you hear the question?
And the reason I'm wondering is as it relates to demand, if we can see a correlation with the demand.
Yeah, part of the problem is we've been doing it in multiple steps through time. So there was what's called MWELO, the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, which we adopted a version of on behalf of all of the 6 cities. At the time, the county was looking at adopting a similar ordinance, never has. So our ordinance still rules the day here on the peninsula for incorporated and unincorporated. But prior to that, there was another effort at a model landscape ordinance, probably a decade earlier. So there's been little sequences of this. We started offering, as does California American, landscape audits. And so there's trained professionals who can go out and work with people on that. But the model landscape ordinance, at least for large scale landscaping, it talks about friability of the soil, so soil moisture content, allowable plants by category and class. So it's pretty extensive, but trying to look at the data from when something was put into place on landscaping, it's hard to get our hands around it. We're a little better at knowing, for example, in 2002, when we started doing the visitor serving retrofits, there's a clear kind of path that you can track back to implementing those. But then later, about probably 8 or 9 years ago now, we started doing commercial, industrial, institutional rules similar to the hospitality rules, and then with follow-up audits. That one's harder to track. We know it's having an impact, so it's tough. Even the laundry rebate, we know it's had a major impact, and we can count the number of rebates that are out there, but the quantification it's a little tough because you always have your cost of water issues layered on top, and so there's behavioral, there's technical, and then there's economic conservation or rationing, if you will, and it's some combination of all three.
Yeah. Plus you have multiple conservation programs running
Yep.
at the same time. Okay, thanks. Anything else for the board? Okay, we have Tom Raleigh wants to speak.
Yeah, good evening again. Public comments very quickly.
Mhm.
Because this goes back to 2023, we know that Judge Carrie Panetta in March sunsetted the water supply charge. And I hope there is at least a footnote in this report that recognizes that the Superior Court ordered the sunsetting of that. If this is not indicated, it should be. It's part of the story, part of the history of the Water Management District. And again, I challenge you to get your general manager to take action to get this water supply charge sunsetted for good and quit the appeals. Again, Mr. Laredo said, you're appealing this. This is a needless legal charge. Judge Carrie Panetta had a very fair hearing, ran for several days, and she said there isn't any way to cut the baby's bathwater. It was agreed that it would be sunsetted when the water charge was reinstated on our water bills. You need to follow what the judge has said. You're not carrying out your fiduciary duties. And I think some of you know very well, elected officials, what fiduciary duties are. So would like to see some leadership from this board for a change. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just comment, one of the functions of matter being on appeal means that that order has no force and effect until the appeal is final.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Laredo.
you. Thank you for clarifying that. So any other comments about the annual report? Does anybody want to make a motion?
Well, I move approval. I was on the outreach committee when we discussed this, but I do have a question back to the general manager before we finalize action on it.
Mhm.
So I'll just make a motion to approve the recommendation. I want to ask about the weekly.
Oh.
I'm sorry, the weekly, the time code. I want that.
So you moved to.
I move to approve the report as recommended. So I do have a question about follow-up.
And I believe we have a second on the motion.
We have a
And
second.
then
Okay.
subject to minor edits that the director to move forward to the extent.
Yes. Yes. My question is, what would be the process to evaluate and come back in the timing about if the pine cone, if the financing works, if the mechanics work?
Yeah, I think we'd have to do it on the April board meeting. So it'd just be lagged by, a month.
Okay, okay. So, okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Like, I didn't know
so
whether to make an addition to
let's-
the motion in any way or wait. That was really my question.
So let's have a vote. All those in favor of adopting this with the caveat that the changes are made and so forth, corrections? Say
Aye.
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 Yeah, and just a reminder,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Are there any opposed?
I was just gonna ask that. Are there any opposed?
So the motion passes 6 in favor,
6
1 absent.
and 1
Mr.
absent.
Eisenhart is
Right.
absent.
And just as a reminder, we're required by our legislation to adopt an annual report on this timeline every year. So it's, I won't say critical, but it's key that we're doing this now and we can make a decision that you can always distribute more later.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And now we're going to look at the quarterly water supply strategy and budget.
If this is a John Lear topic, I see he
Is he here?
is with us. There we go. And a copy of the PowerPoint is in your red packet.
Mhm.
And good evening, board chair. This is a public hearing, item 9, and it's to consider the adoption of the April to June 2024 quarterly water budget strategy and production budget for California American Water. Next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. In putting together the quarterly water budget, the group considers all of the state Water Resources Control Board orders that have been issued over the time since Order 9510, as well as the previous District Rule 160 strategy targets that were adopted by this board at the beginning of water year 2024. In considering the quarterly water budget, we also consider the various projects and water rights. So for ASR, as Dave stated earlier, we're within the time window for injection and it goes through the end of May. And with the forecast, there's likely 1 to 2 more months of injection as long as we keep receiving the rain, about 7 to 10 days, about an inch or so. We'll keep the recession above the 120 foot and then cubic foot per second. And then later on, after April, the 80-foot requirement at Highway 1. And so as stated earlier, 9, maybe I was speaking a little bit of an optimist with 10 acre feet per day, but I do think at this rate we'll get to above 1,000. And so we plan to operate the Carmel Valley wells to support those injections. Table 13 was allowed to be diverted for direct use within its defined area of consumption, and it will likely, because it's keyed to the same flow triggers, continue for the same 1 to 2 more months. And the average demand within the area that this water rights allowed to be used is 3.2 acre feet per day. So we will continue to produce this out of the Carmel Valley well fields and deliver it as long as we're within the permitted flows. Pure water Monterey operations will continue to recover a combined total of 575 acre feet for April to May, but at mid-May, the project will have met its contractual obligations of 3,500 acre feet, and Monterey One Water will move into injection of the operational yield for the second part of this quarter. So that water will be injected into the operational yield, looking forward towards Pure Water Monterey expansion, and will not be available for recovery for the last half month and then full month of June. So next slide, please.
Just bear with me, John. It's been freezing up tonight.
I will bear. Thank you. The strategies that are used, philosophies, assumes full utilization of the seaside basin coastal water sub areas. That's the native water that exists. We want to move to consume all of that all in water year 2024. It assumes that ASR and table 13s continue through this quarter as long as we receive the rains. And it was this with some transitioning of management at CalAm, we were not able to identify exactly who to meet with in the normal time frame. So what the district did was we distributed the budget on March 12th, the draft budget, to the quarterly water budget group and solicited comments for them, and also whom we are to move forward with at the next quarterly water budget. And we consider the seasonal outlook for the next 3 months. And so our area is an area of equal chances in the predictional models. So as Dave said, we're at just slightly over 100 equal rain. So if that were to continue, that would bring the rain we need to continue on through the end of our calendar permitting injection seasons. Next slide, please. So these are the numbers that that fall out from all of those rules and approaches and projects that need to operate. If we start with Carmel Valley Aquifer, we are within a window of flow that allows for diversion out of the upper subunits, and that is largely used to support the injection of ASR, and as well as balanced with the lower subunits that will support removal of the Carmel River water, as well as table 13 water rights. And we can see that we are showing ASR diversion for April through May at the rate of about 9 acre feet a day. It stops in June as we're outside of the ASR injection season. And that if you're outside of the injection season, we're also assuming a normal recession on the river, which would take away the ability of using the upper wells in June. And so that gives us the numbers we have for the Carmel Valley Aquifer for customer use and to support project operations. The Seaside Basin will remove coastal sub areas water at a fairly constant rate, 200 and 300 and 300 for the next 3 months of the water year. It will recover Pure Water Monterey in April and some in May. And then in May is a transition point where we move into injecting into the operational reserve. And that's why we see in June 0, and the remainder of supply of stored water in the Seaside Basin moves over to recovering of some ASR water so that the river can be produced at the rate that it is. We did at this quarterly water budget meeting talk with Cal-Am about assigning the rest of the river pumping for the rest of this quarter and next quarter, with the goal of getting much closer to the 3376. So that was a discussion item when making this budget with Cal-Am. And then combining all of those into one area, you can see that we're going to be forecasting customer use in April of 925 acre feet in the main system, and 1,025 acre feet in May, and 875 acre feet for customer use in the main system for June. And then the rest of the numbers are for supporting of table 13. And then we total them all together to make sure that we have enough wells to support the quarterly budget. And then the next slide is speaking about the satellite systems. The satellite systems have all been hooked together by interties except for Hidden Hills. So there will be some production in Hidden Hills. There is a mechanism in the Seaside adjudication that talks about how to deal with overpumping in the Laguna Seca Basin as the allocation has fallen to 0 through the triennial ramp downs. And then we see this is the area of the table that we're in for April, May, and June, and what we expect to be pumped 25, 32, and 33, and roughly the historic percentage of consumption in that one satellite system. Next slide, please. So our recommendation to the board is, if this is an acceptable budget, to adopt the proposed water supply and strategy for the main system for the second quarter of water year 2024, the April to June period. And should this be adopted, staff will file the notice of exemption for CEQA at the Monterey County Recorders. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, John. Any board members have any questions about the report?
John, you said something about you weren't quite sure who at Cal-Am would be reviewing or discussing the water budget. I'm not sure I understood. So I just want, can you clarify, did Cal-Am review and discuss this budget with you or not?
Yes, yes, Director Paul. Previously, the quarterly water budget was derived with Christopher Cook, who was the directions operator at Cal-Am, who has now left Cal-Am, and so it was trying to. Cal-Am was trying to decide who in the interim was going to take on that duty, and then that duty will be assigned to whomever ends up replacing Chris.
Thank you for clarifying.
I just had a comment on the report. I'm glad to see, I don't know whether it's AI, but the report seems to evolve into a more understandable report, and the graphics are more interesting and therefore a little easier to follow as opposed to columns of numbers and so on. So I just appreciate staff effort, and I don't know who the company is, but somewhere it's an effort that is productive in my opinion. So thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Earlier in the meeting, you said it was about 50 acre feet. This is from somewhere. Do it have something to do with this report or the last report that we?
Just the last report.
The last report.
This
So-
report's golden. In the last report, if you look at the first page that mentions Carmel River,
Yes.
and then the third page that mentions Carmel River.
Yeah.
Not the same one.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're either
Mm.
picking up an amount that's reflected in table 13, I'm just clarify that. It was only in that first. report.
Okay, because I want to make sure that we're not going through what we went through last year. We're taking less water out of the river and more water out of the ground. So let's make sure we check it.
Yep,
So-
and John did speak to that there is a priority in the quarterly budgeting to better maximize the Callahan Carmel River right of the 3,376.
I think I was hearing that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, and I have a motion,
I'll make a motion to approve accepting the proposed production strategy for the distribution system for 3 months, April to June.
second? Thank you. Let's, any questions, any more comments? Public comment?
Chair
Um,
Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have a vote. All those in favor of the
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you. Where are we going? Yes, we're on to item 10, which
Getting
is,
there, yeah.
wherever it is, which page is that on? Page 45 of your agenda. Okay, Nisha will present this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. Can we have the presentation? Thank you, Sarah. So good evening again. This item before you is an action item to consider the adoption of the mid-year budget for fiscal year 23-24. And I'm going to try my luck with this. Let's see if this moves forward. Oh, it does. So I'm going to start off with the adopted budget for the current fiscal year, which stood at 48.3 million. And this pie chart illustrates the major expenditure categories. The two largest ones being the purchase of pure water Monterey water and reimbursable projects. And then outside of that, we have personal expenditures, services and supplies, and set aside for reserves. So this slide shows the main sources of revenue, and it's somewhat of a mirror image on the two largest sources of revenues. We have sale of water and project reimbursements, which is reflected in the grants portion of this pie chart. And then outside of that, the district has three major sources of revenue: user fees, property taxes, and water supply charge, which has been set aside as a reserve until the outcome of the litigation. Now it's not working. Just wait for the next slide. Thank you. So this slide compares the budgeted revenues and expenditures with the year-to-date numbers. And as you can see here, our year-to-date revenues and expenditures stand at around 15 million, which is about 31% of our adopted budget. And this variance is mostly attributed to unspent project expenditures that have been deferred to the next fiscal year. And I'll go into detail when we go over the project expenditure slide. Oops, let me go back. Thank you. So the next series of slides is just going to focus on the proposed changes. And this slide is focusing on the operations budget, Exhibit B. So for staff is proposing an additional 245,000 for the personnel budget. And this is related to 2 retirement payouts and 1 expected payout for an associate fisheries biologist who is retiring next month. And all 3 payouts belong to Tier 1 staff. Staff is also proposing an additional 59,000 in budget for services and supplies. And this is related to additional insurance costs for property and workers' comp based on actual invoices. We also got a new, I think, cloud-based disaster backup service, and that's the additional cost for ID services. And then we also fixed a few district vehicles, and now we have a fully operational fleet. So that's the third or the 4th line item here. Right, next slide. Thank you. So this slide provides a partial list of expenditures for the various projects that we have. And not every project would fit in. So these are just the big ones. I'm just going to highlight the top 3 projects here. The first one is a reduction in expenditures for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. There's a reduction of 6.4 million. So the original budget was 16.8 million, and the new budget is 10.4 million. So this is just showing what changed. The second big change is a reduction in the IRWM grant of 1.7 million. The original budget was at 2.2 million, and the new budget is 500,000. So there's a reduction of 1.7 million there. And then the third big change is an additional 1.8 million to purchase 500 acre-feet of water. So that would bring our pure water operating reserve to about 700 acre-feet. Now, this is based on last year's experience where the district purchased about 620 acre-feet of water. And so this year, we're requesting a budget to purchase at least 700 acre-feet. The idea here is to have the budget and not use it rather than the other way around. So the total for all the project expenditures is a negative 6.16 million based on the original, from the original adopted budget. Next slide, thank you. So this slide focuses on the revenue side, and staff is anticipating an additional 1,075,000 in permit fees. And this is related to the Marriott Hotel project in Sand City and 2 multifamily developments. So that would increase our permit fee revenue by 1,075,000. This is obviously an estimate at this point. And then we have a reduction in reimbursements from the Pure Water Monterey expansion project and the IRWM grant. So that's the negative 8.1 million. And then we are also expecting an additional 60,000 in reimbursements for the recording fees. And so that brings our amended estimated revenues for this fiscal year and that brings us at about 41.47 million. So now switching over to the expenditure side, this is just a summary of the revised mid-year budget. So we started the budget at 48.4 million. We are proposing an addition of 304,000 for operations budget, and then there's a negative 6.1 million or 6.16 million in project expenditures. And then the 2 line items below that, general reserve and contingency, that's just basically balancing the expenditures to the revenue. Originally, staff had anticipated contributing 1.089 million towards the general reserve. So with this balancing, we won't be contributing that. And then we are drawing a little bit from our contingency. So the amended mid-year budget stands at 41.47 million, which is equal to the previous slide that you saw on the revenue side. Next slide. So this is just an estimate of where we would stand in terms of our reserves at the end of the year. Our projection at this point is that we would end the year with 20.58 million in reserves. And the actual number will obviously vary based on, actual revenues and expenditures. So for instance, if we don't buy 700 acre feet of water for the operating reserve, then our general operating reserve will be higher than what's shown here. And that brings us to a close. And this copy of the slide will be available on the district's webpage. I also want to emphasize that this item was reviewed and deliberated by the Finance and Administration Committee, and which recommends adoption. But I'm here for any additional questions after public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh, no.
Yeah,
Director Edwards.
my question is, 400,000 that we're about to talk about and a couple more items, had that been added into this mid-year review?
The 400,000?
Yeah, for the wells, for the injection wells to be clean.
So the answer would be no, because we think it's going to land in the next fiscal year. We don't think they'd mobilize until the first week of June. But on an accrual basis, that means we probably will accrue something. Yeah.
So we don't have a clear answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one because we don't have a quote yet. Because we're
Right,
just
you don't have a quote,
running
and
out.
it's gonna take 4 weeks or eight weeks to get this done. So I could look for it in a next year budget. I could see it going.
But I think you should hold in the back of your mind that there's probably going to be an accrual of the mobilization costs of getting the well guys out there. We try to match our fiscal year. So if they begin work in June, keep in mind that the injection season goes all the way to the 31st of May. So we don't want them in there until June.
Right.
There may be a little piece that we're just going to have to balance.
Yeah, and we will monitor the budget, and if we need additional appropriations, we can certainly come back to the board.
Okay.
So if I
Okay,
just
yes.
comment, I was on the admin finance committee. I felt like the exercise we went through with our new fiscal officer was a kind of a trial on how he responded to us and how we interacted.
He did good.
I thought it was very good. We asked a whole lot of
He
questions.
did good.
I just wanted to say that there's one question that's still hanging out there, and it's a to-do and it's to think about. But it's for the journal manager as well as Michelle. I always think that our budget looks a little confusing if the public were to try to understand it for one basic reason. The amount of grant money that we budget for and receive and hold and all that dynamic of transferring and whenever it goes up and down or whatever that is because grants get delayed or whatever. I just wish there's a way that there could be maybe a separate report or somehow to simplify what the grant dynamics look like. And then maybe as a separate picture on the budget so that we don't think differently about it. It's a unique transaction system that we have and that we manage it. And I think all that's very important. I'm just saying the presentation for that and the overall budget makes me think our budgeting is much more comprehensive than it is. And it's really controlled by some of the ins and outs of the grant money.
Yeah, and it's not just grant money, it's projects in general.
Okay.
And I think that there'd be some benefit because we started having a lot of explaining in 2015, 2016, as we really started paying the construction out, money going out for Pure Water Monterey, money going out for the chemical building at ASR. A lot of money going out for projects. And so people would look at our budget and go, oh my God, your budget's getting so huge. You're getting bloated. It's like, no, we're building things. And then as you cease to build things, it will come back down. But as Nichelle pointed out, two of the biggest impacts are a reduction of grant funded Pure Water Monterey expansion in the current fiscal year. We're going to spend it in the next fiscal year, but we just got better at projecting where those grant-related expenditures are going to fall. So we took it out of this year. It'll show up back in next year. But the overall budget was 17 million higher than it would have been if we weren't getting those two grants. So we had to count the revenue as revenues, the expenditures, and they balance each other out. But now that we're moving them to the right place, you may recall that one of the pieces, there were two contracts, got rebid, so we lost 3 months in the bidding process. But yeah, those are all timing issues. And then the other big expenditure, and he's appropriate to point this out, is trying to get additional water into the pure water operating reserve ahead of the expansion so that we can meet the minimum operating reserve requirement. And that'll go away too. So we have these kind of one-timer project related, it's almost like you need your variable budget and your fixed budget.
Mhm.
And then you can see if the growth in the variable just kind of follows CPI, then you're doing the right thing. But we've been jumping way up and way down based on projects. So it's a point well made.
That's looking for some kind of notation system or somehow that can help us understand.
Yeah.
The relationships. Yeah. No, this only, it's this and this makes this confusing.
Yeah, and we could probably bring back, if you remember looking at the ACFR, there was a bar chart. And the color of the bars near the bottom are the things that we always spend money on. And you can see they're pretty consistent or just
Mhm.
barely going up. And then there were some big movements. So over time, you could kind of see the story there, but it might make sense to bring that back around.
Yeah,
could be
that's a
visually
great point, and now's the appropriate time to kind of start thinking about this as we move into the budget cycle for the next fiscal year. And so, in terms of presentation, and we can deliberate that in the Finance Administration Committee. But there's the operating budget, like General Manager Stoll said, which is pretty static, or track CPI. And then there's the capital budget, which fluctuates, and sometimes this big piece, like drafts the small piece and causes a lot of confusion. So we can break the two budgets out if that helps in terms of presentation.
I think it might. I'll be interested in seeing what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the comment.
Thank you. Yes.
Question about the budget, but it relates to the recent problem with the ASR wells. And in the staff memo, they discussed the possibility of stopping injection so that you can start the repair work sooner. Are you no longer considering that?
Nah, we've kind of gone around, and it makes more sense to eke out what we can get while it's raining.
I was gonna have to hammer for that one. Good one.
Yeah. At this point, I think we will continue to operating it at 70% capacity and then see where it goes instead of stopping it altogether, trying to fix it, and then not knowing if it's going to be fixed this fiscal year.
Okay, so most of the expense will fall in the next fiscal year. Plus 70% is larger than you expected it to fall out at, isn't that right?
Well, it went to 0 or 0.68. And so trying to figure out really what had happened and how the wells would recover. Yeah, it took a couple days, but they've gone back up over 10 acre feet per day. And I think it will settle kind of at that 9 level, which is nothing to shrug at. It's still, it's good.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments?
Madam Chair, do you wish to take some public comment? Before you
I
a
will take
motion?
some public comment. Thank you.
Hi, good evening again. Tom Raleigh, still president of Monterey Fisherman's Flats Homeowners and Residents Association. Just 2 quick comments. When Mr. Prasad left, your former finance guy, replaced by this guy, it looks like there's not been too much missing. And I'd like to compliment you on a wise selection. And of course, his being exemption to continue serving as an advisor still goes, I guess, to the end of the year. So anyway, it's good to see that the numbers are coming out right. However, I think you could wipe out, because the decision by Judge Carrie Panetta was in fiscal 22-23 year. That was last year's report. It's already happened. She's wiped it out. Now you're in the appeal. If you want to reduce the budget and the numbers by 3.4 million for the water supply charge, or at least footnoted at a minimum that this has been declared sunsetted. It's failure to recognize, and you are misleading the public when you send out documents that don't include this recognition. And, you know, do we have to do a press release that says, don't believe the document you're going to receive in the Carmel Pine Cone, or don't receive what you're going to receive with the Coast Legally, because you're not telling the whole story. And you should tell the whole story. Thank you.
I'll just say in terms of the whole story. Oh, sorry.
Do we have any more public comment?
It's Chair Anderson. We have Melody Chrislock.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I just wonder if Mr. Riley ever contacts Cal-Am to complain about the massive amount of money they are wasting on appeals and legal challenges. That would be a good balance if he would like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chrislock.
Chair Anderson, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, are we closing public comment?
We are closing public comment.
Unless there are any questions, I believe you're ready for a motion.
Yes, we are ready for motion. So
I'll just say page 46 of the report does mention that the 3.4 million is being set aside as a reserve
yes,
pending the outcome of the litigation.
that was clear in your presentation. Thank you. And all the directors are well aware of that, that it's being, that money's being held in reserve pending, the decision's not final yet because it's on appeal.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Shall we have a vote?
And just quickly on the second,
Yes.
our CFO did an outstanding job putting this together. We put him through the ruckus of it. And that 3.4 was a big number that was out there. And I'm glad we got it settled, because it could be added on to in July when the taxes roll again. So I'm glad you cleared that up, and good job. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Now we have the resolution on page 57. Authorizing exception to the CalPERS 180-day wait for hiring a retiree.
Madam Chair, this is another action item that the board has seen before, and it's related to hiring of Mr. Suresh Prasad as a retired annuitant till the end of the calendar year, and to waive the 180 days requirement from his date of retirement before we can hire him. And we needed to wait for 60 days as per CalPERS guidelines to bring this item back in front of the board, and it needed to be an action item. So it's here. And this engagement would be mostly for short-term as needed support and some knowledge transfer kind of activities. The resolution caps this engagement at 300 hours. And at this point, we don't anticipate getting close to those number of hours.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I thought he answered them at an meeting that he needed, maybe to ask some questions, and he did such a good job on the mid-year. I said no, but he convinced me that it'd be nice to have him around, so.
Thank you. And I can provide examples, and some of which are in the report. And, the district, for instance, maintains a.
What I'm saying, I don't understand. Was there a question?
No, I just made a comment.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think we need any more.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, no one's saying we.
Can I have,
One comment, I'll move the motion when the chair is ready.
And I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion and a second.
Well, after public comment.
Do we have any public comment?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Thank you.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second the staff recommendation.
Let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 12. Findings pursuant to Public Contract Code 2250. Page 57.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think District Engineer Maureen Hamilton is available for this. I think we've already effectively introduced the topic.
Mhm.
Maureen, if you,
Is she there?
61.
There she is. 57. Oh,
Well, as Dave Stolt mentioned,
61.
around March 7th, the ASR injection wells received some turbid water. The injection forces the material kind of into the screens and into the formation. Staff just moved heaven and earth to try and backflush that out and try to get whatever capacity they could back over time. We're running about 30% under where we were. We need to rehabilitate the wells, which is what they do is they pull the pump assembly, and these wells, I believe, are 780 and 830 feet deep, but I may have that confused with some of the pure water Monterey wells. So they have to pull where the pump is set at about 500 feet worth of column pipe, the pump assembly, the valves. They go through and they scrub the side of the screens where the water goes out. They'll pump all that out. There's a series of means they use to do the mechanical scrubbing. Then they put in chemical to kill any biological material that's growing in there. The water coming from the river has, a certain amount of carbon in it. They do a great job usually treating it at Begonia Iron Removal Plant, but you can get biological growth in these wells. Then they chlorinate it, and they pump the chemicals out, they chlorinate it, put the assembly back in. Because the ASR water supply is a really critical component until Pure Water Monterey expansion gets built, and even after that, the thought of further reducing that supply in staff's mind is that this is an emergency. A reduction in water supply is an emergency. And we would like to take this to various contractors to get bids, but to save the time of going out to bid, which has a advertisement period, you have a pre-bid conference, you've got to get the bid package together in advance of even advertising for that bid. And then the schedule, I have personally experienced where if a more lucrative, for construction contracts, we have liquidated damages. So that if the contractor does not complete the job in the time we have allotted and the time that's specified in all the bid documents, we charge liquidated damages. This would also be true in what we're recommending. It's a part of our construction contract. However, with bid jobs, you can see where you can experience where a more lucrative job comes up, and it's actually more cost effective for them to take a higher paying job. And because the job on the table is so, the liquidated damages go out of the profit equation. So we'd like to work with our contractors, get to know their schedule, really understand who's available and what they have on the books to make sure that we can get this done in the time frame available. We're asking that the board find that this is an emergency and authorize us to continue work on the process set forth. Questions?
Thank you. Questions?
Maureen, has this ever happened to us before?
Yes, it has, I believe in 2020, and John Lear's here. ASR 1, I know we rehabbed in 2020, and I've forgotten when the ASR 4 rehab was, John, I apologize.
Yes, thanks, Maureen. Yes, Director Adams, it did happen to us, that there's a certain rate at which wells just plug over their lifetimes, and that's built into the amortized cost of your project and just and rehabbing them. But then sometimes these events happen that cause a drastic reduction in specific capacity or the ability of the well to inject water into the ground. And this happened one other time where there were some reversals of flows in the CalAm system, specifically when the Monterey pipeline was new. Water could reach the ASR wells by two different manners. And one of the ways, which is over the hill through what's called the crest tank, we had worked with CalAm and flushed the line and got the pipe scale out of the line so that the water was clean. And then due to demand switches around in the system, the Monterey pipeline was turned from moving water from the north to the south to moving water from the south to the north, and had not been cleaned in that direction. And it put highly turbid water down ASR 4, which caused this same problem. And that was in 2021.
So was it again an emergency, and did we handle it the same way that we're proposing to handle it this time?
That was not an emergency. Due to the type of ASR water year we were experiencing. It was not raining. We were not within the permit conditions, and it did not look like, but weather-wise, we were going to get more rain because it was a couple of those drought years that we had. And the second thing that's different in the case of ASR 4 is the ownership. CalAm owns ASR 3 and 4, and they have a rehabilitation program, which is rate-based. So they asked the district to allow them to use their program to rate-base the rehabilitation that happened on 4. And at that point in time, it was also happening at the same time that the parallel pipeline was being constructed, because it had been realized that ASR 3 and 4 were needed to be full-time production wells anyhow. So it was kind of all in that transition of those wells over to CalAm.
So everybody feels like this is going to be just fine.
In what sense?
Well, I mean, I'm worried about it. And I just assume, I mean, I know you know exactly both of you know exactly what you're doing. It just, since it's happened before, I'm sure that going through the process that you've described, everything is, we're not going to get in any trouble with anybody for any of this.
I would defer to legal counsel on that.
You're a smart woman. I always knew that. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm sure it's going to be just fine.
The limited window that we have to do it if in fact we want to try to run all the way up to the end of May with injection. So then you're down to you gotta mobilize in June, get it done, so that you're ready for the next season. Given unforeseen delays, so you're gonna end up saving probably 6 to 8 weeks minimum by authorizing it under emergency.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why didn't CalAm know, do you know why you did not get notice from CalAm about this water quality? That the memo says you could have prevented the damage to the wells if you'd known in time.
I think that is, I think Dave referred a little bit to it as it was outside of the scope of our normal communications that we have, because we do have daily communication with CalAm on how ASR is operated. And quite possibly there was not really a thought that the water, off-spec water, was going to make it all the way over the hill to the wells. And so I think that I don't know the exact thought process on KLM's side, but I do know that now that this has happened to us twice, Maureen and I that's where the memo touches on. We're going to build in some preventative measures on our wellheads so that we can avoid this in the future, because now it's happened to us twice. And so I think we do want to move forward, and we do have ASR operational higher level meetings, and this will be an item that we put on, that if there is something like this that happens and you are receiving dirty water calls in your distribution system, the district should be on that call chain so we can react if we're injecting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Dr. Edwards.
so are these new bells and whistles that we talking about putting on this, is that in this 400,000? Or
It
is
is
that
not.
gonna, it's not, it's gonna be additional?
We're putting together, Maureen is putting in, and I can let Maureen speak to the exact thing she's doing, but she's speccing out what we think we need. In Maureen's previous job, she did automation for the oil fields. So we're going to see what she comes back with.
Okay, okay, so it could be more than 400,000 after, and CalAm ratepayers will gonna foot the bill on this.
Well, yeah, the repair, the rehabilitation will definitely be a maintenance task.
Okay,
If we come up with a mechanical fix, then that'll be a separate budget item. But it'll very likely be part of the pass-through as well. That being said, the biggest thing is I don't really fault CalAm for thinking about this in customer terms. You know, you're waiting for a dirty water call from a customer to say, oh,
Yeah.
you know, I've got turbidity, you know, oh my gosh, is the next thing going to be a boil, or, you know, what's it going to be? And then you think about the valley. So that's, you know, water that got pushed up to the valley residents. And then you're moving it up to the Segunda tanks through Tehama, in Tehama. And you think, oh, okay, well, it'll precipitate out. But as John said, if you don't think originally, well, who's my next customer up over the hill? Oh, the biggest customer during this time of year is ASR. You're pulling water to inject it. And I just don't think, you know, they were dealing with thinking about a customer and use it that way. But the easiest fix is just having the call chain include us. We've got a turbidity event. You know, we could have sent somebody out to do a physical switch, you know, turn it away from the well and towards the pond, and that would have done it. So it may not be that there's going to be a lot of bells and whistles, but there's certainly a change in protocol.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. And one question by Director Riley.
Yes, in terms of a sensor, like bells and whistles, could CalAm benefit from having a sensor at the Begonia plant?
I'm sure they do. I mean, they're pretty SCADA. It's called SCADA, and all the remote monitoring and communications. I'm sure they're pretty SCADA'd up on Begonia. So it's just a matter of So it takes about 6.5, 7 hours for it to show up over there and make it to ASR. I mean, if you look at the log, about the time that they knew they had a problem, plus the timeline is when it showed up. So it was kind of like, I can't say a surprise, but it was the type of thing that now we know that as soon as you get that signal of a turbidity event at Pavilion, spread the word.
Well, I had to look up cavitating. And for your information, I only partway learned something.
Okay, do we have any comment? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I want to hear a little bit more about the emergency. I need to be clear about what the emergency and what the criteria is.
Well, the emergency is to take advantage of the limited injection season and to get the repairs done, to maximize injection during this season, and then to get the work done before the next season is upon us. And if you did not expedite the process, then we would lose the opportunity. We would at least imperil the opportunity to fully take advantage of the next injection opportunity.
But it is clearly a bid related initiative on our part, because if you have a finding that it is an emergency, then there's a safe harbor under bidding rules in California to make it quicker for us to go out and get a preferred vendor.
That's the consequence of the declaration.
Yeah.
Right, no, I got that, I just think we got lost in all the other stuff, that's what we're trying to make sure we don't get
Yeah.
sued for just picking someone out of the
Yeah.
side. The emergency is, we need to do this, but you're saying we're not doing it until June, right? But the impact is if we waited and it didn't go through, we may, be pumping more water off of the river, or not injecting as much, leaving less in there. forcing us to pour more.
That's correct. It would decrease the amount of water we're able to store for future use.
By emergency.
All right, do we have any comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Stratton. I think you've seen my face here a number of times. This is my first time actually speaking to you. The reason for that is, Callum gets mentioned quite a bit here. And on this particular instance, we wanted to address some of the mentions in the staff report. I just want to say, first of all, that we support this item. We support the actions you're going to be taking here, the recommendations today, and reasonable expenditures for ASR functioning. However, we do disagree with some of the comments in the memo indicating that Cali was responsible for the plugging of ASRs 1 and 2. Just to kind of give you a little background, but 8:36 on March 6th, we discovered that there was some turbidity breakthrough at a Begonia iron removal plant. We noticed that, and it occurred for about 20 minutes. We went out and turned off the system and backwashed the filters and sent it back to our distribution system and put the turbidity back into our plant for remediation. So we addressed the issue. A few customers, as was mentioned, a few customers at Carmel Valley did call us saying that there was turbidity in the water. So we took note of that. However, importantly is on the other side of the hill, I think it's kind of mentioned, the other direction heading over to ASR, there were no calls. There were no impacts there, according to what we heard. And during the course of this, the water mixed with other tanks and wells and other things that we had going. So the water mixed and diluted. So we believe that it's unlikely that the SDI or the slip density index from this traveled all the way to Begonia ASR facilities. And we disagree with the report that it was a Caliam malfunction that caused these issues. We do support staff suggestions to install SDI monitors. I think that's a great recommendation, and we agree with that. And to establish better communications protocols in these kind of events, we totally agree with that. And so the district and the county should redouble our efforts to communicate better in areas of common interest. And we still want to deflect blame on some of these things that happen. Sometimes they just happen, and we work our best to fix it. There seems to be a kind of a consistent theme not to include Calium in the successes that are discussed here, whereas the failures, Calium is always to blame, so, as mentioned earlier, there are lots of good things that we together are doing. And so when you talk about ASR and the other things in the annual report, Calium was conspicuously not mentioned as part of the collaborative team on these successes. And here we go now where Calium is to blame. I think we need to sort of remedy that. We do work collaboratively on a lot of things, from steelhead, saving the steelhead, conservation programs, ASR. We work collaboratively a lot and want to focus on some of those collaborations. So thank you, and appreciate the conversation today. We're going to work together, and I think it's a great idea what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Yeah, and I'll ask John to revisit with William and Maureen the technical memorandum if there's any changes that are required.
Okay, great. So there is a motion on the table. Oh,
The raised hand is listed as Ian Oglesby. I know, and I keep lowering the hand and it continues.
You've got a second out there. Huh?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a motion on the table.
I move approval. It
Okay.
wasn't,
Go ahead.
did
And I'll
somebody make
second
it?
it.
I'll move approval of this item.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, so are we ready? Do we have any more comments? Let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, and we are, the only thing left is informational items, and okay, we have a comment from Director Riley.
I like the package of letters that we get. I want to thank the GM for the letter that's in the package
Yeah,
to the State Lands Commission.
it's a good one.
And had some good details in it, and I hope it's considered by the Lands Commission when they take this matter up.
Yeah, we were somewhat limited in scope to just environmental justice issues. There's some other things.
Yeah, and there are other parties involved. No, I just thought it was a well crafted letter, and I was glad to see it, and I just want to say thanks.
And we'll also take a look at the annual report to see if we can scrub some of that shared success. But I don't know if you noticed, but we did a email blast about ASR following the weekly. Weekly today credit to CalAm, but our email blast did give credit to CalAm. CalAm recently took all the credit for the ASR season to date, in a blast to customers last week, so it goes both ways. There was a great YouTube video that featured only CalAm last year, so we'll work on our dance moves, but it's a point well taken.
Nah.
Yes. Okay, so yes, we are done, and the meeting can be adjourned at 8:05.